I've been thinking a lot about St Patrick this week, partly because I can't wait for a day off Lent to eat sweets again. Ooh, controversial. Should we have days off Lent? I'll come back to that hot topic in another video soon. No, the reason I've been thinking about Patrick this week is because of what he went through as a young man. We all know the story, how he was kidnapped by pirates from his home in Roman Britain, brought to Ireland, sold as a slave, and then spent 7 years looking after sheep at Slemish, not too far away from us here in Ballymoney. Many of us have struggled, suffered even, during this last year of lockdowns. But think of poor Patrick, completely isolated and alone for years, cut off from everyone and everything he ever knew. And yet, Patrick came through this experience. It didn't break him in body or spirit. And here's why, in his own words. After I arrived in Ireland, I tended sheep every day, and I prayed frequently during the day. More and more, the love of God increased, and my sense of awe before God. Faith grew, and my spirit was moved, so that in one day I would pray up to 100 times, and at night, perhaps the same. I even remained in the woods and on the mountain, and I would rise to pray before dawn in snow and ice and rain. I never felt the worse for it, and I never felt lazy. As I realise now, the Spirit was burning in me at that time. For Patrick, prayer saved his life. By turning to prayer and sticking with it, he realised that God was with him even in his loneliness. God was looking after him, even in the terrible situation he was now in. In fact, Patrick realised that it was only through losing all that he loved that he had been able to find God. As a young man back at home, he knew he hadn't really taken religion all that seriously. But now, stripped of everything else, he learnt how to pray, and prayer saved him. Wouldn't it be great if this Lent we could make time in our lives for prayer? That's one of the reasons why we have all the fasting and penances, so that we can cut other things out to give God more. And this year, when we're still locked down or restricted, it should be even easier. And yet, for many of us, it doesn't seem like that. After a year now of churches closed, opened and closed again, away from the good habits of weekly mass, regular confession, many of us are beginning to struggle to keep God in mind. When we break our routine, it can be very difficult to get back into it. And the danger is that we never do get back into practicing our faith the way we did before. So that's why it's so important to pray more this Lent. Even if we can't worship together at Mass, we can still be inspired by St Patrick to pray more in our own lives, at home, at work, day in, day out. It doesn't have to be long prayers or solemn devotions. Just remembering God regularly throughout the day can make all the difference. And remember too, the prayer should always be a conversation with God. Sometimes we need to be quiet in His company to let Him have a chance to talk to us. There are, of course, thousands of prayers and ways of praying. If you find one that works well for you, perhaps the Rosary, reading the Bible, meditating, you stick with it. But if you're looking for a tip from me, then I would recommend taking just 5 minutes before you go to bed to do 2 things. First, think through the past day and acknowledge the things you did wrong and the things you maybe didn't do as well as you could have done, and then make a good act of sorrow. Secondly, think of the good things that have happened, even the small things you normally take for granted, and then say thank you to God. If we went to bed each night sincerely sorry for our sins and grateful for all the blessings we received, we would be well on the way to being saints ourselves. So, may St Patrick and all the saints of Ireland help us to do well this Lent and discover for ourselves through prayer the amazing love that God has for us.